Smushed Sandwich. Let's talk. Smush
What's up? What's up, everybody?
Sandwich.
Welcome to Smush Sandwich. Today we're going to be talking about finance in the black community. Hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. Let's get into this.
It would be a lot of black, white, a bunch of people hand in hand. Like, you know what? They've been treated unfairly. They've been treated unjustly. Like, everybody has their own story of what this American government have done to people. And it's just going to get to the point where it's like, yo, there's nothing that the government going to be able to do. There's going to be a lot of sacrifice involved, yes. But then it's just going to be, you know what? Some niggas going to take over the White House and that's it.
Yeah. And it's like, I think this goes back to our earlier point about government accountable, because to the point about the veterans, like, people swear that there's no money to address homelessness and there's no money to address issues with veterans and there's no money to address even high quality education, but they found money to give all of these big businesses and big banks billions and billions of dollars so that they can have stimulus, and they don't need them. Meanwhile, all of these small businesses are going under and people are and Trump and his cronies and his folks are the main benefactors of all of these big business grants and loans. And so it's just like, and they have billions of dollars. I mean, like, the whole vaccine conversation is a different one, but they have billions of dollars to create a vaccine. And so the reality is, like, there's no lack of money, but there's a complete mismanagement of priorities, and Black folks are not seen as a priority. And so this goes back to what you always talk about, Martell, in terms of Joe Biden, like, saying his little talking points on the campaign trail, but then, like, when it comes to the nitty gritty, what is the actual action and going to be behind it? It's like, I want us to have faith and hope, but I also want us to feel like that's almost a last resort, and we really have to go to the place of creating our own, because this government was literally designed on our backs and on our destruction. So we cannot rely on that same thing. Like, you can't use as Audre Lorde says, you can't use the master's tool to dismantle the master's house.
For real. That's a fact. And I mean, like, if you look at this, it's so crazy, right? Because all I could think of, like, I'm still thinking of the same thing. And it's funny how we as regular people, the working class, like, the way we get taken advantage of. Because, like, again, like, everybody that needs money, if they can't get it one way, they gonna get it by panhandling in the hood, by people who's trying to, make who's tired of, they're trying to, scrap together a dime out of 15 cent type shit or whatever the case is. And it's like, yo, every little bit I get, you get people outside standing on the corner begging for your little change. They won't go to a rich neighborhood because they know they're not going to get it from them. So it's like, yo, okay, these people have shown all the time that shit, if they making $5, they'll give $4 away to people, whatever, in good faith. So it's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go there. And it's like, yo, I'm tired of feeling that way, man. I'm like, yo, I mean, as much as this person may be struggling or going through their shit, I'm not giving to you or whatever, because it's like, yo, why should I give my hard-earned money to you? And there's a bunch of rich people that look just like you, who you can go to because y'all supposed to be in cahoots anyway. And if they not gonna give you nothing, don't that make you feel like ish? Like, that person who your skin's supposed to make you feel superior in this country, and they won't even help you.
Well, it's crazy. Oh, one more thing I want to bring up is I definitely feel like the same type of intensity that we saw leading up to the election, I want to see that all year round. Because to me, when Biden won and people felt like they all won some victory against Trump and whatever they was thinking, it seemed like the intensity went from here to, like, here.
Real quick.
I
Real
literally
quick,
saw every
real
day,
quick,
every hour of
real
the
quick,
day, I would see
real quick.
Black Lives
And
Matter protests,
to be honest with you,
riots.
to be honest with you, in a way, I think because people have been so used to quiet racism, or that like, you know, people quietly slapping and spitting at you, as opposed to it being bluntly happening to you. So with the energy that Trump had brought while he's in the White House,
Mhm.
with bringing Biden in, it kind of like made it subtle for people. So it's like that's what you're used to. So it's like I don't want that blunt attitude from Trump. I can deal with that subtle, quiet attitude, and I think that's why people are so, you know, they've now decided to, you know, scale back what they were doing prior.
Man, I hope that that's what it is. Because my thing is, you know, Trump talks about fake news,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think to a certain extent that might be true. I think certain people who have power like to spin things and paint a certain perspective to get their goals accomplished. So it makes sense if you want this guy Trump out of office. Yeah, every day you're gonna show Black Lives Matter. You're gonna show riots. You're gonna show all this stuff to make the person sitting at home watching this like, man, I gotta go out and vote. I gotta go out and vote. But then once your guy wins, what happened?
Like the fight is done. Like the fight,
Yeah,
like you
like-
ain't got to train no more. Like you won a
Yeah.
championship and now you don't got to train. Like
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. Like they feel like the fight is over. They feel like they're on top of the world. They don't got to put in the same type of work. And that's when, to me, it's like you were saying earlier or whatever, like you were saying earlier, for the most part, like Tiff, you was making the point of you can't, that's just because, like, you know what, like, at the end of the day, this country is poison. And we can't use the poison to poison the poison. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can't
do
cure
that
a
shit.
poison.
You feel what I'm saying? And that's exactly, and I'm like, yo, and that's exactly what it seemed like people are okay with trying to do. We can't do it. It's not gonna happen. It's not, this country is already poison. There's nothing you could be able to do about it.
But here's the thing also is like slacktivism is a thing, and it was in vogue for people to say Black Lives Matter and for them to just have this like awakening after 25 years of seeing, or however long you've lived. Today is the day that you finally came to the realization that racism exists. Which for me, I felt like was a form of social gaslighting, but that's a different conversation for a different day. I think that like there's still people who did their whole life and they are like boots to the ground every day. But like sadly, people have short attention spans. They only want to be on top of what's trending. And as long as it's not trending for you to be woke or for you to do this, people no longer have the energy or momentum behind doing it.
Mm-hmm. For real, like I that's true. And they you know, this country is used to using whatever type of means to cause distractions so they can continue with their BS. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I don't want to get too much off topic or whatever, but that's why, like with sports, I don't feel the same way about sports anymore, especially around these times, because I feel like these are the times where I think sports figures should have just been using their, you know, their platform to just be like, you know what, F this, like, we gon', you know, like, you need us, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you gonna pay us this amount of money, okay, fine. But it's like, yo, in order for me to play for you, y'all gotta do X, Y, and Z, or else I'm not playing anymore.
I think
I'm
Kyrie
done.
Irving was talking about doing that, man. He was really
But he was like a lot of these black athletes need to create their own league or whatever. And I'm like, yo, the means with, I mean, all these NBA players who have star power, they can branch off. Like they can be like, you know what, I'm only signing a one more year deal. After that, I'm done. And like what Cube did, I think what dudes should have done was like more dudes, younger dudes that had star power would go over to Cube League.
Yeah.
They could have easily done that shit, and it would have made so much noise, because once the NBA ain't getting that same revenue no more, they'd have been like, okay, what do we have to do to fix this? And it's like, yo, you already know what it is. You already know what it is.
And to your point, Ryan, what Black people do, like we have always set it in and created the culture in America forever. And it's like, how do we translate that into really recognizing and capitalizing on our economic power and our economic influence? Because
that's a fact. I'm
then
like,
that's going to make it hot. So why do we keep giving money, energy, and empowerment to all of these things that are not for us? Which is a nice plug for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom on Netflix. Chadwick Boseman, sorry, last movie. I think it's really, really a powerful film, and it hits out a lot of the topics that we're discussing right now.
that shit is a fact. Like, yo, we like a lot of black people, like sports figures, they make a lot of white men wealthy. And it's like, yo, I'm like, you don't necessarily, when you first come in, you may need them to kind of get that star power. But once you got it, you no longer need them. I'm not counting your pockets. I'm not telling you necessarily what you should do, but it would be nice if you took that onus on yourself to be like, hold up, I'm worth how much? What do I need to stay here for? I can actually just get my dudes because I'm enough influence and be like, yo, let's go do this. I'm like, yo, like, look how big, golf got because of Tiger Woods. Look how huge, and golf was a money making sport, but it was boring because it was the same type of BS, like old white dudes, playing golf or whatever. How much black people actually really started playing golf because of Tiger Woods?
That's the thing. Like what you just said is, I understand we got to use them to get notoriety, whatever, but to the point is why. That's because somebody didn't step out of that shadow and create something where you're not going to the white man to get notoriety. You going to your brother.
All right, because here's why, all right? This is to start. Because
no, I'm not debating what you said. I'm not disagreeing. I'm saying
no, and
why they have to do that.
I'm only extending what you're saying. And I think for the likes of a lot of young dudes, like say if they was to go play in Cube League, right? I don't think Cube got the necessary sponsors right now that can, push, skyrocket a dude's star power. You feel what I'm saying? Like he's not going to be able to generate the sneaker endorsements and all that as of yet. You feel what I'm saying? But a guy like, say, like a Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, these dudes, they already have it. Yep. So it is what it is. So then they don't come in with this. It happened after a few years. LeBron is probably like the only dude right now who had it since day one. So he's a guy, if this league was created before, he could have jumped in to play in that league and he would have still been LeBron James. Mm-hmm. But other dudes, they kind of...
But to your point is, we have to build this now.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And I think certain guys have taken some steps, like, because I forget this kid's name, because they had this situation with the college basketball, because they don't want us black kids making money while in college, because they just look at it as student athlete. A student athlete shouldn't be making any money. But he bypassed going to college and went to go play overseas right after high school just so he can go to the NBA. You know what I'm saying? But the NBA, for the most part, growing up, was always the NFL, the NBA was where dudes that was a ticket that they were writing. That's where they wanted to go, because that's what was the talk. That's what we always watched and whatever. And plus, we seen those that look like us that come from where we come from do the same thing. So it's like we chasing that same dream. But if dudes, like you saying, if we create it now, like if you got guys creating it now saying, you know what, F this, we're not even going to we're not doing the NBA no more. The NBA is passe. We doing it this way now. And you got guys that has star power jumping over there and bringing other dudes over there, then everybody's going to divert their attention from the NBA here and saying, you know what, this is the thing to do.
It's like Jay-Z now with the music industry. He's like, nah, we not bound to those rules anymore. It's
and we shouldn't. And we shouldn't. And
he said that. He said, yo, how come when a black person wants to do their own thing, you get so much, skepticism from other black folks, but they never say that to the white guy who wants to go out and do his own thing.
That's all training. That's all training. That's all training. And like we talked before, a lot of parents don't tell their kids, you know what? You can be a scientist. You can be something other than the same typical things a lot of black parents tell their kids they can be. You limiting them to what you feel like they should do because you're trying to chase the dollar rather than chase, something that they can actually change the world by doing something different. You having them do the same thing over and over again. It's the same pattern. So it's like you're stagnating the progress. So it's like, why wouldn't you tell your daughter or your son, you could be a scientist, you could be an astronaut, you could do this, that, and the third. You could do something that can, you could create a disease that can, rid of all illnesses or whatever. Like, you don't tell them these things. You tell them the same type of typical things over and over again. So you setting that same standard for each generation. You could be a rapper, or I don't tell your kid they could be a rapper, but they feel as if, like, because of what they hear rappers say, this is what I'm gonna do next, sell drugs or rap, whatever the case is. It's that seed that's planted all the time, and which kids continue to eat, and that's what continue to grow to each the next kid. And it's like, yo, that's BS, man. Like,
Tiff, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I did. And so I think like what y'all are getting at, is not specific or singular to a certain industry. And I think it starts with, Ryan, you said it's like, it's intentional. There's at the beginning of one of Black Star song, they said, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned. And so me and my friend who we're working on this development project, we always talk about this because we would love to buy a neighborhood worth of houses here in Detroit. And what we find is that when you go to Black people, a lot of times we are being outbid by white folks because they have the money.
Right. They don't want to see that. They don't want to see you buy a whole block.
Right. But it's not just that, it's that also the person who has the Black person who has the ability to sell it to you, they're not thinking long term. Okay, like this is going to continue to stay in the Black community, and this is going to be something that we have, and this is going to be a way that we allow ourselves to build generational wealth. No, they're thinking, wow, I could really use this amount of money. Like I'm going to take the highest bid. And so we have to really shift our collective mindsets. And like Tupac says, we got to change the way we think. We got to change the way we eat. We got to change the way we treat each other. It's so much deeper than just money.
That's a fact. And but the hard part about that is they don't come at you with low numbers. They come at you with numbers that you never even thought you was going to see before. So it intrigues them so fast. Like you get this. So you can have a house and you'll get two white dudes come to your house and be like, you know what, you was told your house is only worth like $250,000. They'd be like, yo, I'll give you 1.5 for your house right now. And you sitting there like, oh my God, are you serious? And you jump on that and then move to Miami or something like that, where it's like, yo, you got kids. How you didn't think you could have left this, you could have just said, no, keep this house in your family for generations and generations. Because there's no telling if you pass today, God forbid, your kids is going to be able to, keep this house. Or whatever the case is.
I think, sometimes I feel like there's nothing wrong with taking the money if you have a plan to then use that money to reinvest in the Black power structure or the Black.
But you heard me say people that take the money and go move to
Miami.
Go
to Miami.
You know what I'm saying? So that's not the case. And I'm with, the point you're making, yes. If that was the case, cool. If you're using that money to further invest, I'm with you. But that's not the case. People that sit there and be like, I'm going to go buy a bigger house somewhere out yonder and I'm going to just live and I'm going to just be, that's it.
That's the problem.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo, like, I'm not saying you can't go take the money and get a bigger house somewhere else, but what else now does that mean? You just thinking of yourself and that's it? Nah, that's it. That's too much. That's too much.
Money is such a double-edged sword. A lot of people try to be like, okay, I'm an activist, I don't believe in capitalism, but it's just like, because of the way the system is designed, opportunity and access are right along. Like, you have to have capital, you have to have economic access in order to be able to create the life that you want to have. And so it's just like, how can we be mindful that we're not getting to a space of greed? Like, you don't need to have, we had the debate about the marriage. It's like, but does anybody need $1 billion? No, you don't need $1 billion. Yes,
you want it. You want it.
Yeah.
You don't need
Yes,
it.
You want
and
it.
it's great, but also
want
there's more important things. There's things that are more valuable.
You know why people want that.
Sacrifice things.
You know why people
The
will go after
sacrifice
that.
was valuable for money.
You know why people will go after that $1 billion as if they needed it? Because it's just like anybody else. Like, say you work hard all year. You time to do your taxes. You get a couple back in taxes. 9 out of every 10 people is not even thinking about investing that money. They thinking, yo, I'm about to go get these Jordans. I'm about to do everything for self because you worked hard all year. You now thinking of doing back, rewarding yourself for the hard work, as opposed to thinking long term, like, yo, I worked hard this year. I'm gonna probably have to do this for the next 20 or something years. How about
That's why financial literacy is important, man, because
that's a fact. I've been talking to my daughter about that. Like, yo, I've been telling her she needs to read up on financial literacy, at least an hour every day or something or whatever. I've been telling her that.
Yeah, but people need to understand that you can treat yourself and still invest and still save. It's all about budgeting, Like one of the guys in the group, the Vanna Black group, right? He said something that I thought was intelligent. Because I asked the question, if you had $1 million, would you spend the whole $1 million in cash for a house, or would you do the 30-year mortgage? And he was like, you know what? You could do the 30-year mortgage, but invest that money at a high yield, annual yield, that actually takes off the interest that you're paying for the mortgage. That way, you pretty much stay liquid so that you can use that cash to then make other investments to make more money. So it makes sense. Another person might go another way and just spend the cash. That's not wrong either. But I'm just saying, like, the way he thought.
But, okay, right. Because, you could even say, buy the house outright and then, put the money into the home after you buy it to, add equity to the crib.
Yeah, or you could take the equity from that crib and buy other.
And then, right. So, yeah, because I was thinking that when I seen that question, I'm like, well, I don't want the 30-year mortgage. If I could get $1 million and buy a crib right out, like if I buy a crib for like, $500,000, right? Let's say if it was like $500,600 or whatever, and then put like another 100 or whatever in the crib as far as to build it up, that's equity in the crib. Yeah. So even if I went that way, I'm cool too, because still in all the rest of the bread. Because you didn't say that you got to use all that money to buy the crib at once.
Nah.
Right. So if I did it that way, and I could still even have enough money to buy like a little rental property, and and rent it out to somebody, or whatever the case is, and still be getting money on the side as well. So, there's a couple of different ways to go with it. Why would I just completely spend the cash and then still have to be paying a mortgage when I could have just bought it outright and don't have to worry about the mortgage?
But see, that's like financial literacy, understanding how money works, that you have different options. It's not like, oh, I got this check, let me spend it all on Jordans and chains. And nah, you can buy a little something to treat yourself, take some of that, invest in it, take some of it, put it into a savings account. You can do other things with money, but sometimes people are like, oh, I got money. Oh, here you go. We got to stop doing that.
Mm-hmm. That's a fact. That's a fact. But at the same time, we so consumed with social media and the lives of rappers and actors and all of that, where it's like, yo, damn, you see the car this dude had? Yo, I want one of them. Like I still don't be understand. That's another conversation, but still, it's just like, yo, like, look, at the end of the day, that's what these things are. These material things are put, they look good. And if you could afford it, by all means, fine, you get it. But damn, yo, it's like to kill yourself for it. I'm good.
And not reinvest in your own community.
For real.
Because like you said, you could buy your own house and then you can buy a rental property, preferably in a neighborhood that maybe needs those homes to be renovated. You can buy another rental property, renovate it, bring the property value of that community up by renovating this.
So, all right. So let me ask you a question right now, right? Or kind of like a stem off of this.
Yeah.
it's not the easiest thing to invest in your own neighborhood because not everybody treats it the way it needs to be treated. Like you could try to do good for the hood, but it's not like the hood is gonna be good to it. You feel what I'm saying? So how often, like say, okay, you had the means to invest in the hood. Would there be a strike limit to, you know, to where how much times you would invest in the hood before you stop? Or would you still continue to invest in the hood because the hood is not used to nice things? So it's like, okay, they may act out about it, seeing it the first time, the second time, or what have you, but that doesn't mean that it still shouldn't happen. Because
Can I answer that real quick before you do, Marcel?
Yeah.
So what I've been thinking about as y'all are talking is like, there's different ways to invest in people that are not financial, right?
Mhm.
And so why are people not treating things well? It's like, if you don't feel like it belongs to you, then you don't have any incentive to treat something well. And so
Mhm.
how do we move from being so individualistic to being more communal and collaborative? Because that is really our natural way of being as African people and as people with African roots. That individualism is that's whiteness, that's capitalism. All that said, like, how do we invest in people's mental health and their wellness and their education, and how do we create a shared sense of ownership? Okay, can you rent to buy this property? Can you have some type of long-term opportunity for you to understand, okay, now you're building a community garden, you're having some sense of ownership, so it belongs to you, and it's not just something that that's just a necessity, but it's something that you value.
Okay, all right. So with that said, right, let's talk about education. So now if I'm building a school in a particular neighborhood, right, where the investment is, you know, you don't have to pay for it, but you get first class education for your kids. You know what I'm saying? State of the art, you know, computers, everything, right? But because, like I'm saying, the attitude, because of something they're not used to, right? Because you're gonna get kids you're gonna see computers busted. It's gonna be misused.
I see your point, but this is what I'll say. I'm not comparing black people to animals.
No, hold up. Hold up.
No. Well,
All right, go ahead.
I hear your point. I'm
ahead.
answering your question. I see where you're going. When an animal is abused, I'm not going to use an animal. I use a child. I use a human being.
I was about to say you could be a child. Yeah, right.
Yeah. When a human being is abused, they're not used to certain things. They're not used to love and affection.
Love, right.
They're not used to a lot of different things. So when you bring that child into a new environment with love, they're not going to take to it immediately. They're going to act out. But the way to remedy that is not to be like, get out of here. I'm not going to give you no more love. I'm not going to give you no more warm bed and food. The way to remedy that is to continue it until you start to change their mentality.
Right. Okay. So I'm glad. Cool. That's cool. I appreciate that response. Right. Okay. So now you have an individual who's doing these things, because it's not just the individual, it's also the parents. Because it's like, if the parents isn't receptive to what you're doing, then it's like, what choice do I have? Because if I can't really coddle the child if the parents is poisoning the child. So the child is only with me, but for so long, but what you're used to is what you go home to. So if the child is being poisoned with negativity and all that, whatever I did today, he's only going to come back with it. He's going to come back with the same attitude tomorrow.
Not necessarily.
You don't think so?
I mean, no, what you're saying is true. I've seen that happen, but I've also seen the opposite happen, where people break away and they break that family curse. Where
Absolutely
different, and they're like, okay, I want this. Like Jay-Z had a story. That's 2 times I'm talking about Jay-Z, but he had a story.
I said Colin Kaepernick like 2 or 3 times, yo.
Yeah, but he had a story where he went to, I think, one of his teachers' homes, and he saw that the refrigerator had like the automatic ice cube maker, and he was like, wow, like to him that was like amazing. Like he's seeing a different type of lifestyle. Changed his whole mentality. He was like, I want this. So this is different. So even though that kid might be going back home to some bull, his mentality, because you're giving him something new, something that he can aspire to achieve,
Mhm.
he may break free of that curse and go on a different route.
That's true.
Also, I want to share my perspective on that as a lifelong educator because
Yes.
this is like a conversation we're having. So even what I described to you, the thing I said was like the first thing I said was mental health services, and
Mm.
approach is a communal school. So how can you
Mhm.
bring the parents in for workshops on different
Mm.
approaches to engaging with their children and teaching them, and different ways of holding their kids accountable? You don't have to beat the hell out of your kid. How can
Mhm.
you make, teach them responsibility in different things in a different way? How can you create jobs for the community within the school so that they can be a part of it and it's something that belongs to them? It's not
Mhm.
something that's there
That's
and that
that's
is
a
being imposed
that
upon.
is. I think it would encourage a lot more parents to where it's like, okay, they wouldn't mind being in a school.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't think, like, when tackling the type of issues we're talking about, I don't think any idea is necessarily bad, because what's been happening hasn't been working. So why not try something different?
Yeah, and if you listen to all these kids that grow up, it's the same type of moms wasn't there, pops wasn't there. They had to work 2 or 3 jobs, this,
Yeah.
that, and the third, or what have you. So it's like you have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to get by,
Yeah. And
You
the
know what I
thing
mean?
about it is the Black Panthers get such a bad rap, but what they did was they created community schools.
They definitely did. They
And they
definitely
laid the
did.
foundation, like in New York City, the early childhood education with all the wraparound services and stuff, that is based on the model that the Black Panthers created. So it's like we don't even have to reinvent the wheel. There's a blueprint for all of this stuff.
Yeah, there's a template already. And that's the thing, man. I feel like a lot of things, when you really tackle it with just common sense, there's a lot of problems that could be solved with just common sense. The thing that impedes a lot of progress is people who have other agendas, and they want to convolute things and make things seem more complicated than it really is. And
That's another point. That's another point.
Yeah,
Another
and it
point.
could be like you were saying, it's rich people who want to hold on to all their money. And
They don't want to eat on the same plate as everybody else. It is what it is. They want to
Like-
frivolously spend their money on yachts and boats, and
exactly.
you know what I mean. You know,
Exactly.
get a yacht big enough where they can play golf on. Like, I mean, that matters to them. So it's like, if that means, putting another black man in jail or keeping black people in the hood, so be it. So I can have a yacht where I can play golf on and eat lobsters every day, have it flown in, imported, and all that. So be it.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And that's where it's like, you know what we was tackling earlier, we cannot poison. It has to just get to a point where, you know what, F this, we're going here to do this. At some point, it's just gonna be like, well, we need you. It's not gonna be no ifs, ands, buts about it. They're gonna need us. And by that time, it's like, keep your yacht and your boat.
But you know what though? It's like you're attributing it to greed. And what I'm really sitting here thinking,
This country is greedy.
I know, but listen to what I'm saying though. I'm really sitting here thinking, if tomorrow or hey, a year from now, the thing that was going to make you wealthy was to be pro-Black and to say Black Lives Matter and to invest in Black communities, I don't know that necessarily white people would do that, because I think that what's even more of a motivation than greed is the ego and how your ego is fed by having somebody underneath you. And that's why poor white folks in particular be the most vitriolic racist people. And that's why they say that Donald Trump is like a wet dream for them, is because he's completely mediocre, but he is, he represents richness and wealth, and he has a beautiful wife. I still think that the ego is even a step over greed.
I hear you, but you know what the issue is for white people with that is that more and more Black people every day want more. Even in a regular workplace, they want more. They, once upon a time, you could get a promotion by working hard. Nowadays, they're not giving promotions for working hard anymore. You can work till your fingers bleed. They're not giving that up anymore. And the thing is, they're afraid because it's like they don't want to. You'll have white people work until they're like old because they don't want to give it to a black person. They don't want to get a position to a black person, and they know that they're capable of doing it. They don't want to. So
Well, I'll say this, like to Tiffany, what Tiffany was saying. There's like there's a whole initiative taking place where, like, I believe it's like 35 corporations are trying to hire 1 million black people, trying to train these people and say that you don't need a college education. They give you those skills. So I think it's funny that you said that. That actually is happening where they're trying to pretty much monetize empowering black people and giving black people financial growth. So that actually is happening to a certain extent.
I'm trying to see where, because in my experiences that I've come across, I've seen a lot of personally where it's like, yo, you're falling off, like you need to retire, but the threat of having a black person in a high position, and it's not something that they're saying, you could just tell. I'm gonna keep working because I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to be.
I hear that, and I think that's true, and that's probably going to be true in the future. But just to the point Tiffany was making, she said, if it became a way you can make money by empowering black people financially, she said she don't think white people would do it, but I think white people are starting to do it. It's almost like the green energy movement. Like everybody was all fossil fuels and oil and stuff, right? It needed something to happen for people to now start investing in renewable energy.
So with the point that you're making, let me ask this. How are they trying to invest to where they're trying to empower them? Are they just trying to empower them just to keep their business running and have them working for them? Or they're actually trying to teach them to run their own business?
Well, that's the thing. Like one of the caveats of this whole initiative is they're trying to train black folks to actually take higher positions in corporations. So you're talking about being members of the board or being CEOs, you know, making more black executives, because there's been a disparity where there hasn't been a lot of black CEOs, a lot of black executives. So they're trying to remedy that with this initiative.
So and again, now, is this something that is, in your opinion, not like something that you may know personally, but you're in your opinion, is this, you know, a recipe of they're doing this, right? Because we got to get in where we fit in. So it's like, because of what's going on right now, let's invest in this to keep the business going, as opposed to this is the right thing that we should be doing because of this is some shit that's been going on, and we're trying to fix this because it's right.
I mean, I don't think it's not one size fits all. I think you got some people who recognize the wrongs of history, and they're trying to remedy it. They're trying to fix it. I do think you got people who are just opportunistic. They just capitalize on the movement that's happening now and say, hey, I'm with this movement too. And in the process, they know they're going to make money.
So now, with you saying that, if you had a son or daughter and you're raising them, right? So let's say they're going into the future, let's say the next 5 years where they're going to start working. Would you encourage them to work for this particular company and learn under their tutelage? Or would you convince them, nah, like work for yourself, get your own shit going, learn by, going to get your own information to start your business and doing this for yourself?
Well, to be honest, I would say do both. There's no rule that you can't do both. And it's not just one company. It's a coalition of like 35 companies right now. And it's going to attract more companies to join the coalition. So it's going to be multiple industries in technology, finance, all across like the economy. So yeah, if my son was interested in finance and some financial company was like, yeah, you don't need a college education. We're going to take you, train you, and give you the skills so that you can be on a high level within our corporation.
So
So,
I
yeah.
mean, so shouldn't it be? Shouldn't it? I mean, well, I hear what you're saying. I'm not gonna say shouldn't it, because I mean, the answer would really be yeah. You know what I'm saying? I just feel as if, like, companies, period. I just think with companies, period. I think the one thing that they should look to do more is give employees a pension.
I mean, but these type of positions will have like,
No, that's what I'm saying. I didn't want to just only, because clearly they would have a retirement plan and they would have all of that with being a CEO. That's but I mean, like, a regular person who works at Home Depot or whatever, like, you got people who done work for Home Depot for 20 years and then retire and then only have like their 401k. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but a person who done been breaking their back for you for 20 years,
well,
why shouldn't they have a pension?
I think that's a whole nother conversation, because when you
yeah, in a way, I didn't want to kind of do that, but
no.
I'm saying what we were saying.
The reason why I'm saying is a different conversation is because we see how pensions are actually they can be a detriment to certain companies because they can't afford the pension after a while. So it's complicated. Like I like
it would. I think it would. I think it still all depend. Again, okay, I'm not okay. Not every the point you're making. Yes, not every company, but Fortune 5, like Home Depot, they couldn't pay that.
Yo, to be honest, nah. I'm looking at it from an investor point of view. Some companies, you think they're so huge and so big, but when you look at their balance sheet and their revenue, to give every employee a pension, you don't know what they would do.
Okay, then okay, all right. Then the options of, if you could do a pension or some immediate stock options.
But they do that.
Not every company. And at the same time, it's not immediate accessible for every employee.
I believe Home Depot does that though.
That was just an example. I'm just saying, not every company gives immediate options as far as stock options to all their employees. You have to be, not like if you're on grade A, you don't necessarily get it. You have to be somewhere up to kind of get that.
Yeah, some companies. Well,
you know what I'm saying? And I think because not everybody's going to be working at Home Depot. Not everybody's going to be working without. I'm only going off of, the idea of what you're saying with a lot of these, organizations, what they're trying to do and trying to teach, African Americans to, finances and things of that nature so they can become CEOs of a company or what have you. And it's like, okay, not everybody's going to be a CEO. Not everybody's made to be a chief. Some guys are just bred to be Indians. They just work hard with working in the steel mill or whatever the case is. That's what they do.
I respond by saying this. When you look at the corporate structure or the hierarchy, it doesn't just go CEO, guy working on the factory line. There's a lot of executive positions up that ladder. So it's not just like it's like CEO, CFO, COO. There's the vice president, there's the president. There's so many different executive roles that, it's actually, and maybe that's the thing, like people need to know that.
No, I think people know that. I think I'm looking at it as, I think a lot of people know that. I'm thinking of okay, everybody has a role, right? And regardless of what your role is, if you're not there, the company can't function properly. So it don't matter if you're on the bottom or if you're on the top, everybody has a role. Because if whatever slot you're in, if you're not doing what you're doing, something is going to go wrong. Yeah. Everything is an engine part. You pull one of them engine parts out, the engine is going to falter. Period.
What do you think?
But I just think when it comes to the everyday working person, they seem to get less of the benefit than everybody else.
I mean, I agree with a lot of what was said. I don't have anything particularly insightful or unique to add.
No, but to Ryan's point, I think like the guy who is considered the bottom of the totem pole, There's been companies that came out and said, you know what? I don't care what your role is in this company.
Mhm.
Everybody, even somebody who feels like it's an insignificant role in the company, you
Mhm.
make $100,000.
Mhm.
And then depending on what your position is, that may go up, that may scale up.
Mhm.
If the person at the bottom of the totem pole, $100,000.
Mhm.
I think something like that. I mean, maybe not 100,000, but you should pay a salary where the person could pay their bills, feed their family, and not be on welfare or, using government services or always wondering how am I going to pay for this next thing. Like if you work 40 hours a week,
Mhm.
it should not be even in your thought process. How am I going
Mhm.
to eat? How am I going to? That's insane.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I do have a
Exactly.
thought on that, which is like having a living wage is a basic human right, especially in a country where inflation continues to rise, but the minimum wage just it never increases to
Mhm.
match like the rate of
The cost
goods.
of
And
living. The cost of living.
exactly.
Mhm.
And also, the people at the quote bottom of the totem pole are the most integral people. Like, could you go to a Home Depot? Would anybody buy anything at Home Depot if there was nobody there to ring them up or to stock the shelves or to keep the store in order? Like, no, they are essential. And
Exactly.
especially in a time like this, the idea of being an essential worker
For real.
really
That's what. That's what.
shifted
That's for real. That's what I'm saying. It's
balance.
like for real. That's what I'm saying. It's like, yo, every part of an engine plays its role to a
Yeah.
T. And if something goes wrong, the engine doesn't work properly anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, it doesn't matter what part you are essential to this particular, to what's going on here. And if you feel as if, like, because of you're in a higher portion of what's going on here as opposed to the person that's down here, if you're treated unfairly or differently because of your role, that's effed up. Because if I'm not here, this whole ish could go crazy.
Yo, I feel like it's funny. We so yeah, I think Black literacy is definitely important. I think an economy where we patronize each other businesses, we uplift each other, we support each other. I think that's really vital and important. Group economics and working every day to change our mentality. Yo, I actually heard something. It's funny. I heard something the other day where an older Black person said that when she was growing up, there was like this thing where it's like if you want something done right, don't hire an N-word. You better get yourself a white man to do it. And I think that type of internalized racism still exists. You might see different forms of it. People might not be as harsh, but they have certain biases and certain perspectives where it's like, I don't want to do that with a Black person. Why Black people got to do this? Why? But it's like the same thing. Like we need to just work towards not having those feelings, changing those behaviors, and really trying to uplift each other. So if you watch the video, definitely hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, share this video, leave comments. We need to have more conversations like this. Thank you for watching. See you later. Peace. All right, let me